Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought I had to ask to be a speaker.
Yeah, they're trying so many new things now. So there's an option to just let people come up and speak. I can't seem to ping anyone anymore. So there's so many different things they're trying. So we will see.
Okay.
Yeah, we will see. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was trying to see how I could get my mom on. Let me see if I can share this.
Yeah, let me see. Can I share
with her?
Okay, let's see. Share the. Let's see.
I'm gonna send her a text.
Let's see. Can I do this? Oh, there's a chat. Are you privy to the chat?
Actually, I am, but the thing is I don't know that she's online.
Okay, because I just put the link in the chat.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how that's working. Like I said, this is really new, so we'll see how all this new stuff works. And it's too bad I cannot ping anyone. Okay. Well, like I said, I'm playing with it, so maybe I'll find it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Kim. Okay, now when my daughter came in, I had to, add her as an invite. So I guess whoever comes first, I guess. I'm not sure.
You're not on mute, just in case you thought you was.
No, I'm talking to Portia. It's just something new. The whole system is new today. They have a lot of updates. So it's really different in the back office. So I will get started in a couple of minutes. And then we'll go from there. Everything's a new experience. Okay, I'm gonna give it one more minute. Should have had some background music on. I will do that next time as a placeholder. So you won't just have dead air.
You still have time if you want to do that.
Yeah, I'm not as creative, so. Because I want to have chosen some, quality music. So I will work on that next time. I can sing. Woo!
Please don't.
Woo! Oh my goodness. Okay. Did that link work for you, Portia?
I'm actually not able to click on it. It's not a clickable link. Let me see
Oh
if I can highlight it. Copy.
That's something.
Okay, so yeah, it does. If you hold it down, if you hold your finger down over it, it'll give the option to copy.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you can move it somewhere, huh?
URL paste. Let me see what it brings up.
Okay.
So yeah, it does. It works.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty then. All right then. Okay, so about to get started. So I've been continually asked why we're doing 6 Saturdays, because it's part of our book, Speaking in Colors, and hence the name 6 Saturdays. And Speaking in Colors is centering around communication. We've noticed that there has been a grave breakdown of communication. And in some cases, for some people, it has improved once the shelter in place mandate occurred. And for some others, it has really caused them to sit and fester and deal with some issues that they're dealing with, which is causing some outbursts, some inabilities to reach their goals because they're so upset, they're so hurt, they're traumatized. And we're hoping that these sessions that we're having on the first and fourth Saturdays will allow us the ability to unpack some of the things that we're dealing with, some of the things that's occurring around us, some of the things that's occurring within us, some of the things that's happening just in this world as a whole. We want to continually to be able to let people know that 6 Saturdays is a place of safety, is a place for you to feel comfortable to express yourself without judgment, and to be able to have the ability to learn. We should be always in a posture of learning and growing, no matter who we are, no matter how old we are. There's so many things that gets into the way of communicating and being an effective communicator, whether it is trauma, known and unknown, biases and prejudice, our upbringing, our lack of understanding or desire to understand. There's so many different things that really gets in the way. And we want to be able to say to you that we hear you, we understand you, and we want to let you have a say. And if you so choose, ask us to help you. We are here to help you to deal with some of the things that you're dealing with, so then you can effectively unpack some of the things where you are. It is very important that you allow others to also get a word in. You allow others the ability to know, you listen, you be able to listen and hear what others are saying, and that you will be a catalyst of, if you know that something works in your circle, in your world, that you share it with others. A lot of times people are going through things, they don't know what's happening, why it's happening, and they don't have the resources to move on. And so we're here to help you. So this is why we have created 6 Saturdays, also known as Speaking in Colors Saturdays, because we realize that the factors of how you were born, your nature versus nurture, how you transmit your frequencies, your energy, how you communicate in transmitting communication, and that there are ways to color correct, meaning rethink, is part of the concepts of Speaking in Colors, the book Speaking in Colors. So with all that being said, I just want to help people to understand why we have these sessions every first and fourth Saturday. So today, we're going to talk about, are we going back in time? I've been noticing that lately there's been conversations of so many different things that makes you see things and believe that we're not in the is this the 21st century? The 22nd century now. I get that confused. But we are in the 1940s and 50s. My daughter saw or read something where a young boy threw some cotton at another boy and began beating him on the back. She can expound on that later if she wishes. And then I know there was a senator, he was talking to some of his constituents in the state that he manages, and they talked about abolishing interracial dating. And you have the Karens and the Kevins, you know, shouting at people, treating them in such a way as if they are the masters. And there's so many different things that's happening right now that is causing me to think, wow, we're going back in time. You know, the abortion, the education laws, there's so many things. So I just want to just once again communicate, talk about, and really see what others are seeing and how can we view this, unpack it, move forward, make a difference. The floor is open.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll go ahead and start. Thank you, Mama B, for having the room, and Nikita Nicole for being here, and Bernard, and my mother as well, who is joining the call for the first time today. But you know what I'm reminded by? Oh, and sidebar, I have to say, I have been so excited for 6 Saturdays since we haven't had them. The past couple Saturdays, I've been itching and waiting to reconvene with everybody. So just want to let you know I'm super juiced to be here tonight. But I'm reminded of the movie Antebellum with Janelle Monáe. I don't know if anyone has seen this movie or if you're planning to, but spoiler alert, I'll try not to give too much away. But in this movie, it basically just showed the fact that you could have both the old and the new present at the same time. And the crazy thing is that some people will not recognize and see that the slave plantation never left. Like slavery, in a sense, never left. It just evolved or it became hidden. And I feel like, I don't know that it's necessarily that we're going back in time, because, and I've also, you know, in a sense, heard it that time is a construct of man, that really the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously together. Because how is it that you have something like what you mentioned earlier, as far as some little boy throwing cotton in another boy's face, as if this was 19 something or 1800 something. And then you have the newest addition to the Supreme Court justices, and that's a Black woman. So we're still experiencing these things that represent something that is old and ancient and very dark and evil. And at the same time, breaking glass ceilings and even cement ceilings that have been forever keeping people of color out of certain spaces, and we're now showing up there. So I don't know that it ever really went away. I just think it evolved and became less overt and more covert. So that's my point.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday evening to you all, and thank you guys for coming to this week's 6 Saturday. So for me, I think this is twofold. I feel like you know, there is a sense that these freedoms and things that we have are grandfathered in. And so we continuously talk about slavery, and we continuously talk about these things that have happened to us in our community as a culture, and just people of culture and color, so far as being slaves and things of that nature. But the importance really needs to be on the people who fought for those rights to be, you know, for us to have certain liberties and certain rights. And there's this thing that I think people feel like, because it has, you know, passed and we can get married and we can kind of do as we wish, that those rights and those laws and the certain things have been grandfathered in. to where we don't ever have to go and fight for them again, when in fact they were only given to us for a certain amount of time. And so right now, there are free thinkers, there are people that are out there doing the best that they feel that they should for their communities, for the world in general. However, we don't have, so far as how we saw it before, the Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King, those different people, we don't have those leaders, because when they see them trying to, bud up, i.e. the Sebbies, the Nipsey Hussles, the Tupacs, the people that really had the ability to control the masses with the energy that they possess, they were killed. And there's too much forensics and too much things that we have that is the ability to figure out who did what, for society or the government or whoever to say that they don't know who has done what. But when you do things strategically, then you get certain pardons for some of the things that you do. So I say all that to say that, number one, a lot of these liberties and things that we have, a lot of youth, young adults, and just people coming up feel like those things are, grandfathered in, that you will always be able to vote, that you will always be able to have same-sex marriages, that you will always be able to get married to another race or nationality. And some of those things, have an expiration, number one. And then on the flip side of the coin, I do believe that things are going backwards or going back into time, because people are starting to understand the value of the way that we lived prior to technology and all of the excess that we have. So when I speak of that, I mean, people are going back to living minimally. You only have 2 feet, but you have 20 pairs of shoes, 30 pairs of shoes. You have all of these clothes, you have all of these things. And to a certain extent, when you fill your life up with things, your mental and spiritual abilities and connections, in a lot of ways, are affected, because you have so many things to fill up space that could be used for spiritual, mental, physical connection and awareness. So I do think that a lot of people are going back to the minimalistic lifestyle. A lot of people are going back to growing the foods that they eat. A lot of people are starting to keep writing down numbers and not relying on, your phone to do everything. A lot of people are going back to, writing letters and communicating and just doing things how we did before. And it's sad that I only know one person's number. If something were to happen to my phone, I would only know to call my mom's number. Other than that, I don't know anyone else's number. I can't contact anybody. So I'm just saying all that to say that there are a group of people that it is important for that group, or for us to start to try to reclaim some of those things that we lost, in the process of being able to have so much and to be involved in so much. So I know for me, there are certain things that I don't want to embrace moving forward. And so I am kind of reverting back. But then also, like I said, on the flip side of the coin, because some things are not grandfathered in, some things that are going backwards don't need to, and we need to fight to push certain things forward. So I think, just to speak on it in general, yes, a lot of things are going back in time, but some things, should, and some things should not.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying, which is very important, is that while some things are moving forward, some people that are going backwards for things that added more quality, added more viability, added more peace, health, strength or what have you that the days of old held. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And do you think that this will continue to work, or you think that it will create, well, let me back up. Do you think this will continue to work? And is it going to be a new culture that people catch on to? Or would it be only for a select few because people might say, I don't want to go back to that? How do you think this
Well,
paradigm was?
it's not about it working or not working, and it's not about it catching on or not catching on.
Mhm.
People are starting to determine and decide how they want to live their life. People are starting to determine and decide how to move forward. And so it is going to cause a natural divide.
Okay.
But you see it now, and people that I speak to, and because sometimes it's kind of a personal thing to get somebody's phone number. So sometimes I'm just like, oh well, what's your Instagram? People, young people are not necessarily, or not even just young people in general, which you would think that majority of people would, but I'm running into a lot more people that do not have an Instagram, do not have a Facebook, do not have social media.
Right. I'm noticing that too.
And so it's like, oh, okay, well then I end up asking for the number after that. But it's like, and have no desire. They don't even want
Right.
to look for my Instagram. So
Right.
it's like they don't even want to connect in that way. And so it's not a whether some people are going to catch on or whether it's, whatever. This is the way that people are starting to choose. And if everyone took advantage of the time that we had 2 whole years this month, 2 whole years to gather how you were going to move forward in your life. And we're definitely moving forward in time. So it's not to move, back in that way. We cannot redo what has already been done. But to understand that there has always been a pattern, an ebb and flow to the life we live, whether it was fashion, clothes, food, this whole movement on eating better and veganism, it was already here previously. And so everything is kind of coming around to a circle. So people are starting to look at which part of these patterns and which part of this ebb and flow and this, polarity, which part best suits me. And so it's not more of a jumping on a bandwagon, because you're really going to have to be about that life. You can't just fake minimalist being a minimalist. You can't just jump on that as a trend. And the only reason why I said it is because you said, are people going to catch on? People catch on or hop on to trends. And then when, the Yeezys come out, or a new electronic device comes out, and you decide that you're going to participate and get certain things, it's like, not to say that you're no longer a minimalist, but there are going to be things that test what you believe.
Right.
Oh, you're gonna live off of the land, but Chick-fil-A just dropped a new sandwich.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
there's life that is still happening. So it's not a matter of
catching on,
or catching a trend or a fad. People are really gonna have to decide how they so choose to live their life, because in certain instances, like this metaverse and different things that are happening, you're going to have to determine within the decisions that you make, how forward are you willing to go? How much are you willing to participate in certain things? And so even in those decisions there, and we saw that with the vaccinations,
right?
You had to make a decision so far as your life, what you wanted to do, and how you were going to move forward. So it's going to naturally cause a divide, because you'll have these people that are minimalist, do want to go back to the connectivity of relationships and not online dating and certain things of that nature. But then you're going to have a sector of individuals who are okay with it, who continue on, who, are using artificial intelligence for certain ways, just like, it was yesterday or the day before. Yesterday. Yesterday was Mom's birthday, everybody.
Woohoo! Happy birthday. Thank you.
So
my birthday month.
This place that was called that burger or something
That burger
like that.
spot.
That burger.
That burger spot.
Yeah, that burger spot. And it was funny because I had been telling my mom that McDonald's, all these places are about to be automated. The youth and young adults are the only people that are occupying these jobs because they are young enough to, the money that they offer you there is only suited for a youth or a very, very young adult. And so I was telling her that all these things are going to be automated. So it was funny because we went to that burger spot just as I had predicted. There were only 2 people in there, and you don't even talk to nobody. You go up to the kiosk, you punch your food, you order in on the screen, you pay on the screen, you get your receipt, and that's that. And then they text you when your food is ready. There was nowhere to sit inside, things of that nature. So it's like, as the world is continuing to move forward, you will have to decide how you show up in this world, what you will participate in and what you will not. And so, what are you going to do when you go to sit somewhere and your waiter or waitress is artificial intelligence?
Right.
Or you just sit at the table and there's a kiosk there at the table. No one comes to you. You just press in at the kiosk at your table what you want to have, and someone or something brings it out to you. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yes, we are going forward. There are people who are choosing to reclaim some things of the past. But it's not like a thing that you can catch on to, I should say, because if you're doing it so far as a trend, society and the way that life is going is really going to check you. It's really going to it's really going to call your bluff, basically, so to speak.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to give an input before we move? Okay, yes.
So, yes, I like this question. I like the philosophical nature of it, spiritual nature of it. And I'll tell you guys about a project I did 2015. So I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, and everybody knows what happened in Charlottesville in 2017. No, sorry.
Tell us.
Okay, it happened 2017. It was 2 events. In July, the Ku Klux Klan came, and then in August, Unite the Right rally, which was like white supremacist. So both events, they were protesting the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue, and then there's also a Stonewall Jackson statue.
Okay.
So that's in the downtown area. That's where everybody goes to. There's this downtown pedestrian mall, so downtown is where everyone goes on Friday. So if you saw the news, it was worldwide. They marched through UVA campus. A woman was killed, Heather Heyer, when this guy ran over her with a car into a group of people. So there was them protesting, and then there was counter protesters against them. So it was a lot going on. Police were out there but weren't doing anything. So after that event, the city was wounded, and people were like, how are we going to heal from this? So that was 2017. So in 2019, I think this artist, he has this thing called Art in Odd Places. I forgot his name, Ed something. So he started in New York. So he does these different things where he just asks artists to perform and do installations in the public, so kind of like you're interrupting people with art.
Okay.
So in 2019, they brought it to UVA, and I'm guessing he picked UVA because of what happened. And he was like, okay, you guys need some art, something. So it's 25 of us who all applied to be a part of this. We got paid. And for 2 days, we did different things. Like one woman, she was blindfolded. She was walking with a stack of books. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
All kinds of stuff happening, and people were just watching what we were doing. So one day we did it on the UVA campus. And then the next day we were on the downtown mall, a general area where the events had happened. So I initially was going to perform poetry, or just have my poetry broadcast sort of, randomly as people walk by. But it evolved into me coming up with this character. And I called him Lieutenant Lee. And he was from the future. So that was based off of Robert E. Lee. And so what I did is I put on this painter suit, which I spray painted to look like space. I had a briefcase with like electronic gamma rays. And so I was basically Lieutenant Lee from the future.
Okay.
I came back to present day Charlottesville 2019, and I was looking around and I was like, so I was in character the whole day. I literally never broke character, not even for people who I knew. And so I would come up to people and was like, what's going on? As I've come back from the past, and it seems you guys have reverted to the racism that we eradicated this. Like in the future, there is no racism. Like what happened? And so I had this whole narrative about how I went to the future and I erased the tapes of racism.
Whoa.
But in order to have that continue, something had to be re-recorded on top of that. I was like, you can't just erase racism. You have to record something on top of it.
Whoa.
So I was asking people questions, engaging them. And one of the funniest things, I had this can of air and I was spraying it. So my friend came up with this word. He's like, raciation. I was like, there's a lot of raciation in your atmosphere. So I was it was fun. It was fun.
Raciation. That is, ooh.
So it was hilarious. So, yeah, so the whole issue of time came up a lot because to me, the question you're asking, I was like, man, it seems like 1940s Germany is overlaid on 2017 Charlottesville. It's like if you took the maps, they would be overlaid, you know? And so you're getting this kind of time wormhole thing. And this guy has to come back and it's like, whoa, so I was playing with words. I was like, am I in Nuremberg, Charlottesville?
Wow.
Or am I in Berlin? Or I'm in Charlottesville, Germany? Or Nuremberg, Virginia. So I was playing with words like that, seeing if people caught on to it. Just playing with this idea of like, yeah, it seems like we are going back in time in some ways. Because I mean, to have the Ku Klux Klan just be out in broad daylight in full regalia on a modern street was just insane. Like when you heard they were coming, you're like, wait, is this a movie?
Right,
like,
right.
You're saying the Ku Klux Klan is just gonna be strolling through the street in broad daylight, like regular day. So I was playing with that whole thing and, you know, getting people to think about, you know, what are y'all doing now to make sure the future can be as it should be? Because that's the only way that's going to happen. You guys have to do something now to make sure the future is produced. You can't just wait. Otherwise, it's going to revert back to what it is now. So just to your question, made me think of that project that I did.
Wow, that's beautiful. That was really forward moving, not only for the person who asked for the installation of the art piece, but for you to come up with that idea. That was really forward moving. I love that. I love that. How did you spell raciation? Was there a spelling to it?
I mean, if I said, it'd probably been like Raciation. So it's like radiation, but it was raciation.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down, the keywords. Okay, cool. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love
if
it.
you want to see, if you I have it. Well, I don't know if you guys follow me on here, but I have some clips on Facebook. I took little clips throughout the day. If you wanted to watch a few clips.
Okay, well, yeah, I will put your Facebook handle within the message, you know, when I put these up. And what's your Facebook so I can find it? Your name?
Yeah, it's just my name.
Okay.
My name.
Okay, I'll look for it. Okay, and what's the name of the clips?
I think it was called like art. Yeah, I hashtagged it. So I don't know if you can do like just hashtag searches, which I think you can.
The
hashtag was art in odd places.
Okay, I'll look it up. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
That was really, really interesting. And I would have loved to actually see that. And I think that using art and things that are non-biased are, you know, a way to kind of, you know, jog people's thoughts and conversation about some real things that are going on. So that was cool. I actually wish I was able to see that.
I know. I know. I know. One thing I noticed too, as we're talking, is that we always had the have and have nots. The middle class, as we call it, I don't know where that is anymore. But now with this thing that I'm talking about, us going back in time, that's creating yet another channel for people to move. Because as Nikita was talking about the minimalists, going back to gardening, not getting into technology, and even for the young people. I know a lot of older persons were not so much into technology and they didn't care to be into it. Because their thing was, I want to talk to you personally. I want you to get on the phone. Better yet, I want us to go somewhere and have coffee and meet, and for some people, this thing that we're doing now with the COVID has caused a lot of people to rethink things too, where they were okay the way things used to be, as it pertains to using technology, texting or what have you, but now they're getting back to the point of going back to, where it used to be, hey, call me, let's meet up, let's do this, let's do that. I miss us hanging out, so forth and so on. So while we have the going back in time that shadows some negative things, it is making us think that, hey, to be able to go back in time, we have to see what worked, what didn't work, and how to move forward to improve our lives. Hence the gardening, which now, creates a healthier you. Hence minimalistic life. Hence not getting so caught up with social media. They had this study about how much time that people are spending on social media, that there's an app and something attached to your phone that says, hey, if you activate it, hey, let your app sleep, or you're spending too much time, or this how much time you spent. Because even the companies that have made these apps realize that people are tapping into it so much that they're losing the consciousness of communicating properly, because they're so busy tapping into a thing instead of tapping into getting to know someone on a personal level. Or that's how they get their news, instead of really searching like we used to do in school. We searched and really got the root and the underground news to really understand the full picture, and not just what we were painted on the surface when we had to research and study, especially as a student in high school, junior high school, or college. So going back in time is showing us so many different things of how we really functioned as people, and the things like I talked about, the abortion, the education, the young man with the cotton and beating and different things like that, is showing us where people's minds are as well. How number 45, his thing was making the country great again. Okay, great for who? Great for who? So, some people really want to go back to the way it was in the 40s, well, 20s, 30s, 40s. Well, 20s was the recession, but the Great Depression. But some people really want to go back to the 40s and 50s and some 60s, because it benefited them, but it didn't benefit the whole world. And it is, as other people are now coming out in this world who were already here, I'm not, I'm using the word coming out, but they're being seen more. Now the world has to have yet another shift. I was talking to my goddaughter, Benquetta, and they have a baby, and he's like 3 or 4, and they were talking about these COVID babies. I keep on hearing these COVID babies, these COVID babies. But one thing because they said the COVID babies are different. And when it comes to this topic, going back to basic, he said, regardless of this being a COVID baby, we are going to do some old school things and bringing him up. We may not spank him as much, or things like that. But when he does things, instead of saying, because I told you so, we're going to try to explain. We're going to try to engage him more, different things like that. So my next question is this new age parenting, as I want to call it, COVID kids with technology, some of them being antisocial. What do you think are some things that is going to be impacted for their going back in time? Because they're like 2 and 3. So by the time they reach your age and my age, this time will be their going back in time. So we're at 2022. And so by that time, they'll be at about 2040, right? So let me have your take on that.
Can you pose the question again though? What was the full question?
Okay, so we're talking about going back in time, right? So I'm talking about you have these COVID kids. And right now it's 2022, and we're talking about how things are back in time for us. You know, like I'm talking about the 40s and 50s in this conversation today, and how abortion, education, the way people think, the way people are interacting with us, with the Kevins and Karens, the interracial dating, I mean, marriage, how some people want to ban that. So what do you think the impact is going to be on the COVID kids, the kids that are born during the COVID era, which is what, 2020, and how they will be in about 2040? What you think they will, what do you think it will look like for them going back in time, as we're talking about now? Would things be better? Would things be still with the minimalists, non-techie, gardening? I know we can't really project, but it's really interesting to see every era, every generation, every phase of going back in time.
I think for them, they wouldn't know any different because this is what they know. And so just as we had our elders telling us, you know, I remember when stuff was a quarter, or I remember,
Okay, let me
I had to
rephrase it.
walk a mile to school.
Well, hold on, let me add this too. So what I want to say is talking about the laws too, because like we're talking about things we seem like we got to fight for again, like the voting rights and different things like that. It seems like the fight will continue, but really will it? Like you said, they can't see anything different. They don't know anything different. So how do you think what we're fighting for now, or what we're looking at now, is going to impact them?
Well, so far as the laws and things like that are concerned, I feel like this generation that's coming up is weird because they're very passionate. They have a lot of passion and not a lot of direction. So I know with their liberties being taken and different things of that nature, I think that they would stand up to what is going on. Definitely probably protests and different things like that. But so far as the organization to get things done, I'm not gonna say as a whole, but the youth and young adults that I know now, or that I know that are coming up, are very passionate, but they're also very kind of like entitled. There is a certain level of pride in not knowing or don't want to know. It's almost like that Chris Rock when he was like, I don't know shit. Like, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm just saying that, there's a certain, they're only involved and interested in certain things. And it's kind of a self-centeredness.
Okay.
So it's kind of crazy because I feel like once it start hitting the person individually, then they're like, oh, we got to do something.
Okay.
And then those individuals would get together and then try to do something. But as a collective, it would have to happen to the person individually first before they decide to do something. And then when they did decide to do something, what would it be? I really don't see no real
leadership.
Yeah, there's kind of like how Toby Nwingwe would call it their sheeple. you know, is they're sheeple, they're sheep, you know what I mean? Like to a certain extent. So really all someone has to do, a celebrity or influencer or somebody. Now, not, and like I said, I'm not saying everybody, because some of the kids that are coming up are individuals, they have their own way of thinking, but majority is sheep more than, you know, independent leaders willing and ready to do what it takes to make sure that everything is okay for the collective. So all, you know, a celebrity has to do, a Travis Scott, a major influencer, whatever, is saying, you know, oh, you know, we shouldn't have this law, or we shouldn't do this or that. And it's kind of like they're gonna follow that. You know what I mean?
Wow. Wow.
So so far as and I mean, maybe, you know, Bernard could speak more to this because he actually deals with children on an everyday basis, but it's gonna be kind of rough. And I'm lightweight glad that I will be lightweight phasing out, like not phasing out. I'm not trying to die early, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's you know, it's I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting, to say the very least. It's gonna be interesting.
Well, before someone else give an input, because I was looking at, they were talking, like Bernard was just saying how, or was it somebody else, how people have fought for us to get to this point, and for it not to be really grandfathered in, we have to yet fight again and again and again. And that's why this judgeship is so important at this point, as Portia just alluded to. Judgeship, what's her name, Brown Jackson, is so important because the laws that people have to go under, say for example, when they sue or something and they have to go to a higher court, the decisions make a big difference. And let me say this too, it's really interesting. I love Judge Mathis, and Judge Mathis tell people all the time, your congressmen, your local judges, you know, who, if you get a ticket, you know, who sit on that bench, your chief of police, a lot of these people have to be voted in. Pay attention, because if people don't pay attention, we are really going to be going back in time. Because being in the South, I noticed some of these laws, just like, are you serious? Are we really there? You know, where we didn't have in California. But it's neither here nor there. It exists here, and it's something that needs to change now. So anybody else want to chime in on the question I had earlier about, you know, the impact that the young kids now are going to be up under if we don't do something now? What do you think will be happening? You know, Bernard, do you see any trend already happening? I mean, any lack of care, any, you know, just they're just not in touch. I mean, just give your input, please. We really want to hear that. Because you know what? Because my thing is, are we fighting for nothing? Because if we're fighting for something, because it's kind of like, I'm sorry to cut you off, it's like people didn't realize all the sacrifices that people back in the day did, you know, and they're taking it for granted now. You know, well, I'm not gonna go vote, or I don't care if this person is the judge of my local state or city. You know, just all these things. So if people are doing this now and they're having kids, oh my God. So I really want to hear what you guys say.
Yeah, I'm still trying to kind of grasp the question totally, but I think the first thing I'll say is,
you want me to rephrase it?
Everything's about ideas.
Okay.
Because you know, everything we're talking about is, I mean, generations are gonna die off, but you have to ask the question, why do these ideas still persist?
Correct.
Right? It's because
right.
It's not the people, it's the ideas, it's the ideologies get passed down. It's like, why was the Ku Klux Klan in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia? It's because they still carry the idea of what someone told them in their minds.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if there was like a small segment of them they still believe that's who they are and that's what they're going to be. And so they're going to keep trying to, replicate ideas. So I think in general, that's why I'm always telling people, philosophy, think for yourself, take ownership of your own thinking, use your own imaginative ability, because you have to develop your own sense of self and your own sense of purpose. Otherwise, you're just going to float with the current, as they call it, the zeitgeist, like the common consciousness of the day. Oh, what's everyone else think? Oh, Black Lives Matter? Yeah, me too. Like Nikita was saying. People just tap in to what's popular because they don't have to think. And then also, particularly if you're going to get canceled, like, oh, what's everybody on now? On Black Lives Matter? Yeah, that's what I say too.
Right, right.
But do you really believe that?
Right,
Like, do you believe that, or you just don't want to be canceled and you're afraid?
Right.
You saw what happened to these celebrities.
Right.
So that'd be the first thing I say. I think, Nikita was asking about my students. And sometimes I do get a little afraid because the lack of self-awareness is just baffling. I mean, just literally every day I'm walking down the hall to go to different classes because they have me substituting all these other classes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like walking, stop, dead center in the hall. And I'm just like, do y'all not realize that this is a thoroughfare? Like this is the place where people walk. Like, this is not the place where you stop suddenly and then start talking to somebody as if there's nobody else behind you, to the left of you.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right of you.
Uh-huh.
Now, people will blame it on phones. It's not even phones. It's just, I'm just not aware of the environment or who's next to me or behind me, but I'm just going to do what I'm going to do.
Right.
I mean, and obviously as you grow up, you're going to grow up into a little more self-awareness.
We're hoping.
Hopefully.
We're hoping. We're hoping. Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be, I do start to see some students, like this one student who was a problem like 2 years ago. Like, he was like, every time he would come to class, I'd be like, but now he seemed to mature a lot. I don't know if the pandemic, seemed like the pandemic did something to him, because now he's like, hey, what's up, Mr. Hankins? Hey, how you doing? Like, he done changed his whole vocabulary.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if he did some soul searching or that really, turned him to a man a little more, but he definitely more respectful from the way he was. He used to say some wild stuff out of his mouth to me. And now he'd be like, how you doing, sir? And how you doing? All right. And you doing okay? And I'm like, okay, what's going on with you?
Right.
So, to answer your question, I guess the thing I would say is, I think we all need to go through a micro pandemic. So, like, everybody needs to go through that forging process, because that's the only way things are going to happen, when you are really forced to be shaped into somebody. I always explain to people, it's like we used to press that little Play-Doh through the shape, the little star shape. Like, everybody needs to go through that personal shape process. Like, okay, am I a star? Am I a square? Am I a circle? Because that's what Nikita was saying. There's no purpose. There's no shape. There's no form. It's just, you just out here.
Right.
So I think people do need to go through some trials of somewhat to shape them.
Wow.
And it's almost too like, okay, so we have a name for privilege, or when we say, oh, that's white privilege, what do you call someone who is just so self-centered and just unaware, but they're not necessarily of an affluent race? Like, what do you, I don't even know what that's called. We have to make a name for it, because it's like, it's self-centeredness to a detriment.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
It's like people drive like that also that are younger. It's just like, you're not tripping off of but it's not even walking or driving. It's everything. You know what I mean? It's, like, even the COVID thing. Like, bro, why are y'all still at the beach kicking it? I ain't get sick. Like, what?
Right. But you have a grandparent or something.
When you get sick, it's like, man, I got sick. A friend of mine died. Now it's real to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't have to go through, and I think we all go through that, because there was a period where I had to learn by doing, you know what I mean? There was a thing like, oh, that's you, that ain't me, I'll figure it out. But after getting like drugged so many times, it's like, nah, this person did this or that person did that. I can learn from their mistake. I don't have to go down that road to know that that's not a cool road to go down.
Right.
So it's just like, it's very dangerous to have so much vigor and passion and untapped potential as they do, but have no direction. But it's like a delight in not wanting no instruction.
Right,
You
right.
want to get it like quick. You want to get it fast. If you tell me, it's like you have a passion to learn an instrument, right? And I tell you, okay, well, you're gonna have to practice such and such. Like I can get, and that's what's so crazy. That's why there's so many coaches. There's so many coaches and life coaches and master classes and things online, because the gig is up. College and all of that is a joke. It's hella people that are in mad debt that don't do nothing in the field that they paid all this money for.
Yeah.
So it's just like now they're just floating. And it's like, I can give you the game plan, like enroll in this school and do this, study this, do that. I can give you the whole game plan, and you still want the end result. Like you want to hop over all of this knowledge and all of these things that you have to do. I'm not telling you that, and maybe, okay, maybe you can read faster, or maybe you might learn the piano or guitar faster than someone else. So, okay, you can skip some steps, but that don't mean that you can skip practice. That don't mean that you have to, I've been in the beauty, and I know I'm jumping to different fields, but I'm just saying that don't mean that you've been doing hair for 2 days and you got more knowledge than I have my 18 years of being in a certain profession. So it's weird because they have a really strong passion to where really they can morph this world into whatever they want it to be. But they drive, they stick to itiveness and the direction, like, and their willingness to take direction is like, it's like not there. It's like, yeah, I heard what you said, but I'm trying to get it tomorrow. You're not going to be able to get it tomorrow. Okay, well, how long is it going to take me? It might take me 4 years. Oh, but then if it's going to take me 3-4 years, I don't want to do that.
Right, right.
It's like, I too want things faster, but there's a certain thing, haste makes waste, and you don't have certain knowledge or the certain foundation for certain thing. Oh, I want to get into real estate. This is like me. I'm going in real estate right now, and I'm in, a course that I thought was going to be very in depth. It's kind of like a test prep course. So already in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm really going to have to connect myself with people who is really going to have to help me with this industry. I'm not like getting out of class and I just took a test and I'm like, man, I'm about to sell mansions tomorrow.
Right, right.
That's not practical. Like that's not, I mean, and don't get me wrong, with the ability that we have and the minds that we have, that's what we are created to do. We are manifestors, but the amount of people that will be able to do something instantaneous is less than 1%.
So it's
the Kanye's, the people, the Albert Einsteins, these people who, just are geniuses at things, but then they still put the time in. So it's just like, you can't be no activist. You can't get no laws changed. Because the moment that you go and they trick you up, or the moment that you go to a rally and something happens, like your zeal or your passion for what you fighting for is gone. Well, Black Lives did matter, but they came out with the tear gas, so I'm cool. Like,
yeah.
I would say to add to that, so I'm reminded of a statement that Erykah Badu said. I forget which radio station she was at doing an interview, but they asked her, I think this might have been around the time that Trump had just gotten into office. And the question was, is there any hope for the future? Because right now things seem really bleak. It seems like we are going back in time, and not to a time that was good for all people in this country. And she said, our hope is in the children because they're not connected they're not connected to that. It's like the old guard versus the new guard. So yeah, while each generation, each era has their own flaws, I do feel that it's possible that the children of today are not going to be with the foolishness of yesterday. And I say that because we may get annoyed with the PC, aka political correctness of the millennial generation. They're too, some people would say they're too sensitive. They're, offended at everything. However, on that same token, on the other side, it's, well, you know what? There were a lot of movements that were started that called a lot of abuse and foolery out to the carpet, such as the Me Too movement.
Right.
And there were just different things, like even in the wake of George Floyd, having the technology and the cell phones to be able to capture stuff that never would have been seen back in time.
Right.
So I do think, in a sense, that the microwave generation that we live in, because that's when it started, when technology started creating things that were convenient, they didn't realize the ramifications that it would have on both the macro and a micro level, even down to the minds of our kids, expecting to get things in 2.5 seconds. But see, the difference is, with time and age comes understanding.
Right.
So even if, because I know when I was in my 20s and in my teenage years, there is something, because I studied communication, and part of that was psychological understanding and communicating with different people from various avenues and various generations. In your not your 19, but your teenage years and in your 20s, you feel invincible. It's like Michael Jackson's song. Invincibility is the name of the day. You feel like you can do anything, can't nobody tell you nothing, you know it all, you can accomplish it all, you can do it very quickly. That is the feeling.
Right.
However, when you cross into the 30s to the 40s, that's a whole nother decade of life and experience that is not going to be the fantasies that you grew up watching on Disney. Things change very rapidly from one section of life to another. And so I think that they will be tempered, like we all have been. Because I can even ask you, Mama V, like at some point back in your time when you were me and Nikki's age, did you feel like things were kind of at this weird space, different but very similar, in the sense of, we're pushing forward, there's some things that we're seeing happen, but there's still some stuff that doesn't seem to want to change, that needs to change? I don't know. I just kind of feel like maybe it's more or less the same thing. There's nothing new under the sun, truly. So I feel like there is possibilities for the future in terms of hope and change, even with the stuff that we see as annoyances and potentially damaging on the extreme end. I feel like it does have its benefits to serve, later down the line in some ways.
And that's a good point. Let me answer that. That's funny that you asked me that, because we are different generations here. It's really something to see my parents in different phases. So to see my parents, the dynamics of my parents as individuals, number one, and to see them being in the city when they came from the South, number two, Arkansas and Mississippi. And to see my sisters who came from Arkansas in comparison to me, and then later my brother. You are right. Those different dynamics also, not only generationally, but those different dynamics of where they came from versus where I grew up in Oakland, California, had a different dynamic as well. And I saw some things, heard some things that I was saying like, okay, no, I don't do that. Or no, why would they do that? And I told myself, oh, when I become a parent, I'm going to do this. So yeah, I saw the different things, but like you said too, what happens is, even though, like I said about the new age parenting and the COVID kids, there are some things that I still kept. even though growing up, I said, oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this. And I thought I had this difference in mindset. But like you said, when life hits you and you're put in certain situations, then that's the time that you have to see what works for you and what doesn't. And I noticed, even though I had some of the new ideas that I did use to raise my daughter, there were some things I did reach back to say, I do see this working. Now, she have voiced that she didn't like some of them, but it worked for me at the time for the purpose, because her at that time was me being a new age parent, I'll use that word, having to try to figure it out, because there's really no true book. They say Dr. Spock's book, but there's no true book on how to raise a child. There's no true book of how to live life, especially as a person of color. And going through the different cycles, how they say you have to work harder and you have to do this, you have to do that. And, why is it I have to work harder and have 5 jobs just to be equal to, somebody else, that's white. So yeah, it is true. Nothing's new under the sun. Everything evolves, and it is the way it is. It seems like it's going to be the way it is. But the thing is, it's just really still unpacking some things to make the world better for the future. And hopefully, like we have been voicing on this call, that the future generation begins to wake up sooner, and not wait till their 30s and 40s, because things are going fast and the impact is really, really great. I mean, I'm seeing it, and I'm just really shocked as I just sit here sometime and watch how things unfold. And it's like, wow, things are really moving fast. I'm not sure if anybody else is seeing that, but I'm seeing things just really, really move fast. And especially since it's been daylight savings, it's like time has really gotten away from me, but I'll be quiet. But yes, you're right, Portia. It seems like some things I did grab from the past, because like you said, things don't change, but some things I wanted to improve for the next generation, which is my daughter. So then hopefully she can take those reins, and then she can improve for the next generation, through what she could do.
Yeah, I'll speak to all 3 of the points you guys are making, just to kind of tie it all together. So
thank you, Bernard. I said, thank you.
Well, to address all the things you guys are saying, like Portia was talking about, growing up and you coming to your own. Nikita was talking about, I'm trying to remember the point she made. And then Vernita, the things you're talking about in terms of, forming yourself and, as a parent, forming a child to what they're supposed to be. So I did a TEDx talk, and my main thesis was imagination is critical, because imagination is what leads to empathy. Because when you look at the definition of empathy in the dictionary, it says it's an imaginative projection of yourself into another person's experience. And so I was like, it's impossible to have empathy without imagination, because you literally cannot put yourself physically in someone else's experience. I mean, I guess you can for a couple of days or something, but to project what someone else is going through, project yourself into, that's the only way you're going to be able to connect with them. So my whole argument is, this is why imagination is not just something you do on the side or as a hobby, or when you get, it's like, no, this is a part of life. You need to be able to imagine other people's experiences. And so then I go on to make the argument that, and this is why school that focuses only on the maths and the sciences and the histories and the English doesn't produce children who know how to do that. You're only shaping that part of their mind, which is like even the words process of elimination. Like you're thinking about limitation, elimination. You're thinking about which one of these does not belong in the picture? Like you're not expanding your mind, you're narrowing your mind. So you literally have a narrow-minded view. You know, it's like people say, oh, you're really narrow-minded. It's like, yeah, that's how I was trained to think, to narrow down my choices, narrow down my options. You're not taught to look at a person and say, I wonder what this person is going through. Or I wonder if I should take into account what they might have happened to them this morning while they're having a bad day. You just, oh, they're not being what I want them to be right now. And that makes me mad. So that whole part of the curriculum of school is the extracurriculars. It's the arts, the humanities, you know, the parts about being a person, learning what other people are thinking, feeling, emotions, nuance. Ken Robinson has a talk called as Education Kill Creativity. And he says, if you look at all the education systems around the world, there's, you know, math, sciences, and then the bottom is the arts and the humanities. So
yeah, that's true.
To me, I think that's where it starts, because you guys are speaking to, you know, once, like, you know, I think Portia was saying, like, when you're a little kid, you know, you're not connected to all the nonsense yet. Like, you're still somewhat curious and imaginative. You're still hopeful. You still, you know, see possibility. And then at a certain age, someone starts to sort of squash that out of you. They take the innocence and they're like, oh, well, you need to start being more cynical and being real. You can't be naive. You know, you gotta look at reality.
Right.
And so I think that's a critical moment where a child's innocence is taken, because when you stop looking at the world with innocent eyes, like, you start to see everybody as a problem. Like, oh, what's this person trying to do? What are they after? Why you talking to me? Like, nothing. You can't trust anyone.
Right.
So you know. So I think, to me, that's the solution. It's like, if I don't know, everybody can do this, but it's like, you need to get your kids into some kind of educational system where they get both parts of their humanity trained. Like, I always make the point, like, you know, you have one anti-bullying assembly a year, and you're like, oh, so you think these kids are going to remember this assembly and then put it into practice? No, because when you're in that situation, you're terrified. If you ever watch the show What Would You Do, where they put those people in those, like, social situations with the actors. Oh yeah. You know, people be like, they be wanting to speak up and talk. But, you know, it's hard. It can be hard when you haven't practiced that. You're not just going to all of a sudden muster up the courage and be like, you know what, I'm going to approach these two people at the counter who are discriminating in this person. It's like, no, you got to practice. So my argument is, just as much as you're going to make someone practice for a standardized test and you drill that home, hey, you need to be studying for your SATs. Did you study for your SATs? How you doing on your SAT? Like, you ask them that every day. Did you do your homework? So from an educational mindset, you know, you wouldn't expect high scores without practice, right? Like, you wouldn't say, oh, you study for the SAT once a year, oh, you're probably gonna do well. It's like, no, you have to practice. So we literally do not practice empathy. I know it sounds like a weird phrase, but we have to teach students, like, hey, we're gonna have a class and we're gonna practice role playing, scenarios, situations. We're going to practice empathy, because this is important. So we're going to do it every day until a school curriculum is set up with that even balance. I think you're going to have kids who are just, they grow up, or they're going to grow up and not have it, or, like you guys are saying, it's going to take them till they're 30. Right? It's just like, I think we can get it going earlier. Like, you shouldn't have to wait till you're 30 to be like, you know what? It's time to start thinking about people. I've been through some stuff. You know, I've changed. And I'm a different person. Like, no, why can't we form them now, especially when they're the most malleable as young people? Yeah, like the young man in your class. I mean, the young man you said who's changed suddenly. You know, maybe something has happened that caused him to do that.
If I can interject really quickly, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Bernard, because there actually is something along those lines that's happened or is happening. I want to say it was either Norway or was it Switzerland or Sweden? I feel like it was one of the three of those, where they decided to take all the kids in primary school, or might have been secondary too, and they enrolled them in some type of core class that they went to every day. And it was like at this particular, it might have just been at a particular school, to be honest with you, but these kids were on all different sides of the class spectrum. You had some that were considered poor, and you had some that were definitely more well off and even rich. And these kids were all in the same class, and it gave them the opportunity to be able to commingle and to form friendships where they otherwise would not And so that idea of practicing empathy, yes, practicing makes consistency. So when you are constantly meeting and understanding and conversing with people who are not the same as you, then it does create a broader sense of openness and understanding from a very young, early age. And I think they found by either doing this or if it was a study, that the kids were so much more well-rounded, that they had friendships and went on to form other relationships thereafter as a result of that, because they just understood, like, I'm a human, I'm a global citizen. It's not about you are on this side of the tracks, now I'm on this side of the tracks, or if it ain't bothering me, it's not a problem. It's like, no, we are all in this together. And I thought that that was such a beautiful thing, because America could take several pages from a lot of other countries. But anyway, I'm gonna say that for another day. But yeah, it is something that can be done, and why it hasn't been done, I mean, maybe it's founded on the principles of this country. Segregation, separation, us versus them, white supremacy. They don't want to integrate. They don't want to. And then I've also heard from people of color from that whole side, going back in time versus moving into the future. Some people believe integration was the death of people, because it meant that Black people had to erase themselves in order to integrate. So segregation had its own power in a certain sense. Anywho.
Let me just jump in real quick.
Sure.
But it's interesting you bring up the term integration, because the title of my talk was actually called Integrating People of Color. But the little flip I do on it, I said, what if we were people of colors? You know, more colorful, imaginative thinking. But the word integration is interesting, because we typically in our American context think of it as integration versus segregation in a racial context. And it's like, well, that can be used, and that's the way you probably know it the most. But the word integration is used everywhere. It's like you have an integrated circuit board in a computer. You can integrate sounds to make music. Like, integration is about bringing two things together that, you know, seamlessly bond into a new thing. So it is, yeah, it's funny you're saying that. People are afraid of that word integration on more than one level, because it's not just about race. It's like, oh no, how do we integrate the arts with the sciences? Like, that sounds hard. It's like, yeah, it is hard. That's why you need people who've done it. You need creative-minded people who's like, oh, I know how to do that. But that means giving power to the creative people to say, okay, we'll take this over. Well, who's going to do that? Like math teacher, oh, so you're going to let the art people tell me how to integrate my math lesson? Yeah, I got a math PhD. I don't need an artist to help. So people are afraid of that integration on a number of levels.
Right. And it's funny because people see artists as not really true masters of a craft. They act like, oh, you have an art degree, oh, that's nothing, you know, and that's a really beautiful thing to have. If you really look at it, it may not be like a math or history that has some different type of foundation or concrete that somebody think, okay, for example, when you use math solutions, it helps to create structure, weight loads and different things like that. But when people look at artists, they look at artists as something totally different, you know, and I've noticed that, like you said earlier, art classes are gradually being taken out of schools. Music is being taken out of schools. Things that can help a child to be more balanced is really taking things out of schools. And you have all this energy and creativity in a kid, and all you're teaching them is the fundamental of history, English, math. And it's like, but what about the other? What about nurturing the other side of their mind, the other side of them, to give them that balance? So I guess as we look at closing soon, we want to talk about, and you guys alluded to some of this, what are some of the things that we can possibly do or needs to happen for improving us in going back in time to be able to help our future generations to be better with where they are and where they will be? Because like you guys talked about, Portia, when you said that integrating the have and have nots and bringing them in the same space, that's really important. But as Americans, what can we do to, even though we're talking about going back in time and there's some good things, like Nikita said, the gardening, minimalist, things of that nature, but what can we do to help our future generations to, because when you guys get my age, for example, what do you want to see? I'll put it that way. What do you want to see when you reach almost 60 that the world is going to be for you? And what are you going to bring to the world to the best of your ability to make it a better place for the future generations?
I'm gonna just jump in here and say too, and this is, I guess, kind of to answer your question, or not to answer, but an answer to your question. Those of us who are in my generation, and I'm not gonna make a generalization, I'm gonna speak for myself. Things that we learned, things that I learned along the way, things that were not given to me that I had to learn, traumas and different things that I've had to heal for myself over time, and doing the work to just reverse some of the things that came into my life generationally, and then in my personal life, it's been a lot. And so to speak to the notion of doing the work to make this world a better place, I'm tired. I just have to be honest and say it. I'm tired. I'm not even 40 yet, and I'm tired. Me getting myself together and getting to a place to where I can function in a healthy way, to not continue to continue certain customs, continue to do things generationally, to just show up as a good human being on a regular basis. I'm tired. And I'm so tired to the fact of, I don't even know if I want to have children. I want to swoop up some kids that's already here and give them love and help them along the way, because I'm tired and I don't have the answers. And so it's kind of crazy, because it's just like there's a certain level of energy that you have to put into yourself to make sure that you are equipped in the way that you need to be. And after doing that, I'm tired. And I'm not done doing that. I still have to correct myself. I still have to go along and living under the each one teach one philosophy, and knowing that it is my responsibility, but there is so much work to get done, because the ball was dropped on us due to the crack epidemic and different things that were going on at that time. The men not being in the household and different things like that. You know, my generation has had to get themselves together if they were able to. Hopefully, some of them were able to get themselves in order. But after doing that, after kind of, I guess, fighting your own demons, I'm tired. So I'm just leaving that there. I'm not even sad, but to look forward and to say that is our responsibility. I'm tired. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, it wasn't an answer to the question, but it was an answer to me, because I'm so tired. I don't even want to bring no more kids here.
Well,
I'm tired.
It is answering the question, because it's showing that where you are, other people are going to be at different places. Because let me say this, it's just like me. I had my daughter at 19, and at that age, you're still trying to live your life. And it's no shade against anybody, but if I was tired, I still had to keep on moving on. And the thing is, even to this day, I get tired and I want to be self-centered, but because of who I am as a person, because of the gifts and talents that God has given me, it's made me to sacrifice things of myself still for the betterment of others and future generations. So everybody is different in how they see things and what they do. So I really appreciate your transparency and honesty. And I do believe that God has gifted others to take the reins where you may be too tired to
And
do
don't get
certain
me
things.
wrong, I'm not saying that I'm just knocked down, drag out. I just can't forever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the way my energy is set up, it be in spurts. And you know, it's just like charging a battery. It depends on what kind of base you put on it. Sometimes I charge fast, sometimes I charge slow. But in general, I'm lightweight tired. I'm not gonna you know, drop the ball so far as not being helpful, assisting, you know, the future generation. I'm just making the statement that I'm tired.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I concur. I get it. I've even had, just in terms of going back in time, because I literally have felt that in the most darkest way in recent years, where it was like, do I want to bring children into this world to deal with this? Do I want to do, like, I don't know that I have hope, or at least this was how I felt. I was like, I don't know that I have hope for bringing a child into the, why would anybody consciously, like, I literally was on the deep end with that, but I totally understand. And the other thing is, I feel like some of us who live in a certain light, we naturally do that. We're not, typically speaking, the ones who are causing the darkness in this world. So for me, it's like, I get the sense of, I'm tired because I feel like a lot of what's going on, I didn't create that. I don't condone it. I don't participate in it from a conscious place. So for me, I don't want to feel like it is my fault. Like I once heard, just going back to the term, sorry, not the term, but the issue of racism. I forget who it was that said it, but they were like, it was a Black woman, and she said, you know, I am tired of having to have these conversations because racism is not a Black people's problem. It is a white people's sickness. Whoa. And it is not our job to fix or to heal what is their job, because they created this. Right. They started this. Sure, there was classism and sexism across countries and continents and centuries, whatever. But as far as colorism and racism, especially here in America, that is not our job to fix. And I'm tired of being pulled into the conversation, I say that in air quotes, as if it's my or our responsibility to constantly combat, because that ain't nothing that we signed up for. It's nothing that we want to perpetuate. I think for those of us who do, it's more so reactionary against what we have felt as oppression from those groups of people. So anyway, I totally understand it as far as just feeling exhausted.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep. I mean, I can resonate with a lot of that too. And that's why I have had to pull back in the past several years, just to be like, look, I was already on that wavelength about, you know, work on yourself anyway, but even more so, it's like, okay, I guess, you know, even more so. And like Vernita was saying, you know, especially if you're using the idea of we're all in God's army, it's like, well, there's different rotations. Like, you're not always going to be in the fight. Sometimes you're going to be in the infirmary. Sometimes you can be at home. So I think there's that American guilt to like, I always got to be fighting. You know, I always got to be on the front lines. You know, someone's got to fight injustice. It's like, well, so I guess it's gonna be you, because I'm gonna be at home. And people will try to guilt you for that, because right. Oh, you don't care. It's like, I do care. I care so much that I need to take a break so I can be ready to go for the next time.
Right.
But and then there's that other pressure too of like, people have been like, people fought for you. Like, don't you? I was like, look, man, I didn't create the past. Talking about going back in time, I can't control what happened in history. I can't be responsible for like the historical ripples that are passed down. Like, I can't carry the whole weight of whole generations on my back. Like I had something to do with that. I can take my life and move forward and do what I was supposed to do.
Right.
But to answer your question in terms of, what can we do? I mean, I think one small thing people can do is, speaking of time, is stop saying things like, oh, we don't have time, or there's not enough time to do like things we just said, like take care of yourself, but more specifically, engage in those more human, emotional, colorful, creative, imaginative things I was talking about. If you come home, I mean, I'm not a parent, but if you always coming home, you ask, did you do your homework? You do your homework. Like, okay, obviously on some level they have to do their homework because, if they're going to school, you want them to pass. But how often do you come to your kids like, hey, did you do something creative? Or, hey, did you play today? Like, how many parents think about saying that to their older kids? Yeah, to your little kids. But to your older kids, like high school, like, hey, did you do something fun today? Or, hey, did you play? Or, what did you do that was like creative or interesting? Like start pushing nudge by nudge over to the other side of that timetable of the creative part. So they'll start to engage that humanity in themselves. So when they have those situations that present themselves, they'll have practiced that. And so in my TED Talk, the other thing I said is, like, if you think about actors, they practice being humans. They have a professional, I said they have a professional imagination because they use their imagination in their profession.
Right.
So they practice being good people, bad people, in between people. They know what it's like to put themselves in someone else's shoes because they do it all the time.
Right.
So imagine you had a kid who was reading novels or reading comic books. Like, people think that stuff is just leisure. It's like, no, I mean, think about all these Marvel movies and Batman. They be bringing up these questions about, I mean, if you saw the one Batman, they had like the two boats. One had the prisoners with a bomb, and the other one had a boat with the rich people. And each boat had the detonator for the other person's boat. And they were like, okay, whoever blows it up first will stay alive. Like, they bring up these moral questions about who's worth living and who's worth saving. The rich people, like, that stuff is in the movies. And people take that stuff in when they watch it. So you got to allow people to engage that kind of content because that's where their heart opens and is, penetrated by these ideas that they wouldn't listen to otherwise.
Right. Yeah, these are just interesting times that we're in. Does anyone want to say anything before we close and before I do my quote for today? Nikita? Oh, I do want to say this. If you have not gotten a chance to check it out, our very own Nikita Nicole, the Illuminist. Woohoo! She did her episode 12, vetted post-traumatic stress culture, for her mental health, the New Wealth podcast. Nikita, you want to say anything?
Oh, thank you so much for the shout out. I think that in a way, I'm pushing forward to being consistent in things that spark joy, and make me happy. And I deal with, some mental health difficulties from time to time, but doing that podcast really sheds light on a lot of things and helps me to push forward in a lot of ways, not only with the podcast, but in connections and relationships and, just in my everyday living. So I definitely agree with Bernard when he was saying to do things that are creative and imaginative and just to dream and think big. Sometimes when we think about things that we want to be involved in or what we want to do or what we want to get to, it's hard because we're not able to actually visualize ourselves in those positions or ourselves doing certain things. And that visualization is basically imagination. And I tried to do this spiritual thing one time and I paid this man some money. basically, I was following him, but I basically paid him for nothing. And the reason why I say that is because the way that I needed to be to receive what he was trying to help me with, I did not have it because I'm so like left brain. I'm so like, you know, a lot of us in our culture, we call it being a realist, Oh, I tell it like it is. I keep it real. I this, I that. But the bottom line is you're not able to think outside of anything that you can't see or anything that is not actual. So your imagination is stunted. And so we will not ever be able to get to certain places in our lives without that. So it's really important to, I think, actually bringing it around full circle. So when me and Bernard did our 6 Saturdays to play and to actually learn to play, to do things that are fun and not have to be so adult all the time. Or like when Bernard was talking about the children, when your child gets home. No, the parent is most of the time trying to hurry up and speed the child process up. You play too much. You're childish. You need to grow up. When no, you need to be responsible. You need to be self-conscious. You need to be mindful of yourself and others, but you still need to learn how to play and have fun and be imaginative. And so I just, like Bernard said, that is something that we should do. And so a part of the podcast, especially in dealing with mental health, that is helping me to do that amongst other things that I'm going to do. So I hope you guys do tune in. It drops every Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and now I'm on iHeartRadio also. So yeah, thanks, Mom. Thanks for that shout out.
You're more than welcome.
And I still be tired, but I make time for the things that are important and the things that I want. And that's just very important. And, even in this topic that we're speaking about today, in, trying to gear our youth and young adults into things that, will push us forward as a collective nation, just taking those little bits and pieces. You might not work at the Boys and Girls Club, but take an interest in a youth or someone at your church, or just, give some time, whatever time that you have, to the objective to making them experience and helping them to see different. And I just appreciate you guys for coming on 6 Saturdays, every 4th and 1st Saturday.
Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. One movie that I highly recommend, like Antebellum, is Master with Regina Hall. Excuse me. That was really, really interesting because at the end of the day, it showed that nothing changed. And it was written by a young lady who I believe that it was her experience, but it was embellished in some ways, but it was her experience as a person of color going to either Yale or Harvard. So I think that's something that you must see, Master with Regina Hall. So my quote is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's so important because as we talk about, are we going back in time? Your interaction from when you were born up until now makes a big difference on how others see you and how you see yourself as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Saturday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.